What was your first guitar? It's a simple question, but one that's been on my mind for the past week or so. And speaking of which, I think I might owe you all an explanation for what exactly I got up to during that week. About a month ago, I reached out to a few local music schools and programs volunteering to fix up their instruments. And one organization wrote back, "Hi Belle, thank you so much for reaching out. We actually just recently went through a flooding incident, and many of our guitars are in need of some help. Looking forward to talking with you. Warmly, Archie." So seeing that I just left my old job yesterday and I've got about a week before I start my new one, I can't think of a better way to spend my time off than fixing all of these guitars. But first things first, let's get testing. That's upside down. If you're new here, I'm Nisabel, casual musician, part-time content creator, and a guitar tech for fun. I don't have a clients list, I don't charge any rates, and honestly, I just take on whatever projects I feel like. But as I've continued to learn and improve my skill set, I've been feeling more and more like I want to put my experience to some actual good use. Most of these instruments suffer from small things like signal dropouts and other minor electronic issues, but there were also a few basses that had significantly worse damage. One in particular had body, neck, and electronic issues that look like they'll cost more than the instrument itself to repair. So if a repair doesn't make sense, I'll still need to figure out a way to replace it. Rain City uses each of these guitars and basses to give aspiring musicians of any age who otherwise wouldn't have access to music an instrument of their own to play. I spent most of my early 20s as a music teacher, and making sure that everyone has an instrument that inspires them is something that's really close to my heart. So, since they trusted me with 15 broken instruments, I will absolutely be bringing back 15 working ones, no matter what. Alright, so we are all done testing out these instruments, and honestly, things went both a little bit better and a little bit worse than I had hoped, so let's start with the good stuff. Pretty much every guitar behind me just needs some deoxit, new strings, a setup, maybe a couple reflowed solder joints, and I think a couple need some replacement components. I was honestly fully prepared to spend the entire week building new wiring harnesses for each and every one, so this is a welcome surprise to say the least. Now, for the not so good stuff, we have these two basses. On the plus side, the necks, the hardware, and 3 out of 4 of the pickups are totally usable once I get them cleaned up. That being said, the bodies are pretty warped and split from the water damage, so I either need to learn how to re-glue a body and refinish one, or I need to find some replacements. But that all sounds like a problem for future me, so for now, I'm gonna call it a night, and I'll check in with you all once I have an update. I didn't have too much of a plan going into these repairs, but I thought a good place to start was to knock out anything that didn't require extra parts. Most of these instruments had rusted strings, patinated frets, and intermittent electronics. Taking care of these, as well as a general setup, gave me a fair bit to do in my first couple days. Now, obviously, this many repairs require a fair bit of supplies and materials like solder, deoxit, and of course, strings. Which is why I am so thankful that Rotosound agreed not only to provide the strings for all these instruments, but also to sponsor this video. I've been using almost exclusively Rotosound guitar and bass strings for the past year on every project that comes across my makeshift workbench. I love the way they feel, they're made to last, like I personally haven't broken string once since switching, and they maintain their articulation and brilliance throughout their lifetime. But if you do find that you play with a bit heavier of a touch than I do, each pack of electric guitar strings comes with an extra high E so you can replace it without having to pick up a whole new pack. Thanks again to Rotosound for sponsoring this video. I really couldn't have done this one on my own. So today we are heading down to Tacoma, Washington, and traffic's actually not too bad, especially, for Seattle. But we're heading down because our friends at Lollar offered to help out with some parts for these repairs, and I'm really excited to see what they got for us. One of the most difficult and probably dangerous things I've ever done.
What's coming next. The next product release, so it's Jazz Master kind of design.
Oh, okay.
Another app too, like figuring out how to retrofit.
Thank you. All right, we got our parts, and I even got a new hoodie, so let's get back to work. It is a beautiful fall day today, so we are going to take our soldering outside. Finally, it was on to our problem bases. I decided to go with new bodies over trying to repair the damaged ones since, with the week or so I had to devote to these instruments, there just wasn't enough time to learn the necessary skills to get them in working order. Luckily for me, I was able to find a lefty J-bass body and this cool 90s made in Japan one that were both within my budget and could get to me pretty quick. Most of these repairs are ones that I've become pretty accustomed to over the years, but with this many instruments, there was of course a ton of new things I was picking up here and there. Some of these were fun little lessons like how to reshape a neck pocket or figuring out that I need to reverse my wiring for a left-handed instrument, while others were a bit harder to swallow, like the fact that some things just aren't worth repairing. Thankfully, when I brought this project to my friends, Emily offered to donate a replacement bass, and Matt even said he'd pitch in some pedals to help out. I've never put much stock into the idea of community. I mean, part of the reason I work on instruments is so I don't have to rely on anyone. But I think it's really cool to see how leaning on other people can make so much more of a difference than I ever could on my own. All right, we have one last guitar to get to before we're finished with all of these repairs. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I intentionally saved this one for last. This is the Squier Vintage Modified Jaguar, and it's got a few issues. The neck pickup is totally non-functional, the neck has a pretty decent twist to it, and the bridge is covered in rust and also apparently on backwards. Now, if you're new here, you might be wondering, why do I seem so excited about a pretty messed up Jaguar? And that's because, number one, Jags are my favorite guitar, and I absolutely love working on them. And number two, I just happen to have a spare set of Fender AV65 pickups, a spare Fender Jaguar neck, and a spare Jaguar bridge with the Mustang saddles, all of which came from my favorite guitar. I knew I had a good reason to keep all those parts around, so let's finish this up. Let's take this from the top. What was your first guitar? Mine was a cheap acoustic that I bought from a classmate in middle school, and it was a nightmare. Random high frets, finger-breaking action, there's a reason I stuck to playing bass till I was in college. In spite of that instrument, I learned to play, but I know that's not how everyone's story goes. I've met so many people who quit playing almost as soon as they started because learning to play was just too difficult. And yeah, I'll be the first to say, guitar is really hard. But I think a lot of the time, our first instrument makes it harder than it should be. A first guitar can make or break your relationship with the instrument, and that is a lot to ask of what is typically a fairly cheap one. Thankfully, a setup, routine maintenance, and some lighter strings can go a long way to keep you playing when you're just starting out. So while I don't have the power to remove all the barriers that keep people from playing music, I can at least do what I can to remove this one, since this Jaguar and every other instrument I've been working on for the past week will be a lot of people's first guitar. Let's make sure that each and every one of them is up to the task. A lot of fun this past week taking everything I've learned and doing my best to do some good with it. And while after today I return to having a day job and I won't exactly have the time to fix 14 guitars a week, hopefully I'll be able to take on at least a couple here and there. If, like me, you've been looking for a way to give back, I'd encourage you to reach out to your own local music programs to see how you can help. Even small things like giving your friend who just started playing some words of encouragement or finding a new home for that one piece of gear you've outgrown. All of it goes a long way to making music something that anyone can do because, after all, music is a lot more fun when everyone can play. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Happy playing.